And start on the warrant articles. First one's going to be, we're not going to do 1 through 8 because those are they're not applicable to the Budget Committee. First one is the Library Renovation and Expansion Project. And this shows as number 9 on the list of warrant articles, 2018 warrant articles.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I handed out earlier, there's a revised version of Article 9, the Library Renovation and Expansion Project. Basically, the language was revised to meet the concerns of the Department of Revenue Administration, which reviewed all of our warrant articles, and they felt that the way that the funding was described in the earlier version was not clear. They thought it needed more clarification, so we sent it to Town Council and he rewrote it. So the dollar amounts haven't changed or anything, it's just the way that it's presented.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Article 9, Library Renovations and Expansion Project. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5 million for the purpose of renovating and expanding the Wolfeboro Public Library building, to include both the interior and exterior of the building, parking lot, and other site improvements, and include the cost for architect services, engineering services, construction manager services, and contingencies of the project. Further, to authorize issuance of not more than $4,855,000 worth of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA Chapter 33, and to authorize the selectmen to issue into negotiations bonds and notes and determine the rate of interest, maturity, and other terms for this purpose. The $4,855,000 bond amount equals the $5 million gross appropriation minus the balance of the Library Reserve Fund currently estimated at $22,000, and minus the balance of the Wolfeboro Public Library's Building Fund currently estimated at $123,000. Further, to authorize the selectmen to transfer the balance of the Library Reserve Fund and the Wolfeboro Public Library's Building Fund for the project. The bond amount should be further reduced by donations and pledges. Donations currently estimated at $1,200,000 generated by the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation, which donations the selectmen are hereby authorized to accept. All donations and pledged donations accepted by the town shall be used to offset the cost of the project and reduce the amount needed to be bonded. Okay, any comments from the public on the library? Yes, Cindy.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Scott. I'm the library director, and I just wanted to talk a little bit so that everybody here knows what the reasons for the library project are. We have 2 major issues with the library building. One is the functionality of the building. It was designed for a different time and a much smaller population 40 years ago. The library opened and about 30,000 people came through the door that first year it was open, and now we have about 90,000 visitors per year. So it's a very busy library. We have serious noise issues, lack of storage, lack of workspace. We have fewer seats now than when the library opened in 1979. And these kinds of functionality issues need to be addressed, as well as our second major issue, which is the building itself and the mechanical systems in the building, which are having some serious issues, as many of them are 40 years old now. We have roof leaks. We have to shovel the roof when we get heavy snow on the roof. We also have issues with the electrical system, the HVAC system, and the plumbing. This is a public-private partnership, and the Wolfeboro Public Library Foundation has so far raised $1.2 million in pledges and donations, and they are continuing to work to raise more money to continue to reduce the amount that the taxpayer is going to be responsible for. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Cindy?
I don't have any questions, but I'd just like to say I think this project is long overdue. These people have been working very hard at this for a very, very long time. They are blessed with a very generous foundation who are donating a lot of money, and I think it's an urgent project, and I think it should be done.
Yes, sir.
John Sandine for the Library Foundation. And appreciate your support on this, Bob. I want to start by saying that 2018 is a year when opportunity knocks. This library project fits with the overall town development directions that we've gotten from the officials, from the planning board, from CIP. Everybody has gotten in line. As a matter of fact, this project has been postponed for several years so that other projects could go ahead. The second point of opportunity knocking is that the U.S. financial markets are very favorable now. So they're favorable in a number of ways. They're favorable for bonds, to go out and get a bond at a low interest rate. They're also favorable for people to look at donating to the foundation and therefore to this project. Right now, the opportunity is knocking because private donations and pledges are strong, and they will get stronger. And I'll call on our treasurer in a moment to give you the figures. The fourth reason opportunity is knocking is that these are pressing issues. Cindy related the pressing issues. And folks, when she says the building is in serious need of repair and renovation, it is. You know, there were 5 days this year when the heat didn't come on. And it doesn't just come on by pushing a button. It comes on by hiring somebody to come in and solve the problem. So these things, when she talks about leaks, leaks have been going on in this building since I was a trustee 6 years ago. So leaks have been going on in this building for a long, long time. So I just want to say opportunity is here today. The second thing I'd like to say, here's a story of two towns. It's a kind of an Aesop's fable. The first town had a 30-year-old library that needed to be replaced. The library officials planned for 10 years and developed an exceptional design and construction plan. But by then, the building was 40 years old. They asked the committees when was the right time to vote on the plan. They waited while other town projects were completed, and they received the go-ahead from the long-range planners for 2018. They raised a lot of private donations and pledges to help with the library expansion and renovation. The town approved the library renovation and expansion plans in March, and construction began that year. The town was able to get a very low-cost financing for the entire project. In 2020, the new library was dedicated, and the citizens were very happy with their new library for the next 40 years. They called themselves Happy Town. The second town also had a library that needed to be replaced. The library officials said, "This is a big job that needs to be done now." But the town said, "Let's wait and just fix what breaks." So in 2019, they developed a short-term plan to fix the roof. Since they were short of money and had lost private pledge donations that had been raised, they could only put on another flat roof. And they grumbled out loud about the roof that would only last as short as a time as the last replacement flat roof, what with heavy snow loads and all the roof shoveling. In addition, they grumbled about the cost of throwing good money after bad and still not having a peaked roof. By 2020, the heating system failed and had to be replaced while the library was shut down for 3 months. And they grumbled about the cost of repairing a heating system that still used enormous gallons of oil to heat that uninsulated building. In 2020, the librarians wanted to expand the library programs. to meet the needs of the town, but they didn't have any space. So the patrons grumbled about the poor support they received from the library. In 2021, the townspeople looked over at Happy Town and they grumbled about why they did not have a new library, too. In 2022, some of the townspeople were fed up with Grumble Town, and they said, I'm moving to Happy Town. The moral is obvious. We all ought to get out in March 2018 and vote for the Wolfeboro Library expansion and renovation warrant article and live in Happy Town for 40 years.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to call on Bob Vorheide, our treasurer, to talk about the finances.
I've been the treasurer for 6 years, since the inception of the foundation in 2012. And I'll give you a brief summary of some of the results of that effort over 6 years. We've received in donations $567,000 in income. We have run a pledge campaign that generated $1 million in pledges, and about $250,000 has been paid on those pledges. And we have $776,000 in pledges outstanding that will be paid over the next 3 years if the warrant article is approved. The financial resources that we have available at this moment for the renovation and expansion, as Cindy mentioned, is actually $1,240,000, which is 25% of the cost of the project. I guess on a personal note, it seems to me that the people, the taxpayers in the town are going to pay up one way or the other, either for a new building or for significant repairs and expenses and maintenance on a library that is in need of rehabilitation. Are there any questions on the finances?
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Good evening.
Evening, sir.
Alan Harding is my name. I'm one of the directors of the foundation. I concur fully with the previous speaker, Cindy. We're fortunate to have such a competent library director. What she's done is unbelievable with what she's had to work with. John's been a leader of this foundation, and I just checked the other day to see how long I've been involved with this. It started in 2011. So we've done our due diligence, we've done it right, and we've raised a lot of money. Now, one thing, I can't remember if Bob mentioned this, but if we don't get the 60% vote, there's over $500,000 that goes out the door, not to be seen again. So that's something to keep in mind here. I also think it would be very helpful for this board to have a unanimous yes vote, because that's going to be reflected on the ballot and on the warrant article itself, which makes a lot of difference to the voters. And it says to potential donors, and they're still out here. There's many people who will wait until a project is completed before they will step up to the plate. And there could be quite a bit of those out there. One other thing that hasn't been mentioned, that the planning process allows this building to be open at all times, quite unlike the town hall, which had to shut down and everyone had to go to the hospital. I don't have the exact figures because it's really not comparable, but the fact is there's a big savings involved because we're going to add 5,000 to the front of the building. That'll be the children's area. And the 10,000 square foot is the part that will come second after we complete the 5,000. So the building will be open, the library will be functioning as a library all the time. There will be no interruptions. Might be a little tight from time to time, but it's going to be open. Now, it's interesting, according to the engineers and the architects, that the cost of running the building today will be the same as it is tomorrow when this is completed, but there's 50% more space. And I think you folks are very cognizant of saving money. So there'll be a lot of money saved here, too. But we'll get a bigger library. I'm happy to have been able to participate in this program. I'm a retired financial person. I think we've done as much as we can do in terms of due diligence. I mentioned this before. I think we've got a good product. And I hope we have 100% of you guys to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
My name is Judy Crosley. Excuse me, I have laryngitis. I'm a member of the Friends Board, but I'm also a consumer of the library. And just in the event that there are any naysayers here about the use of a library and the importance of a library in a community, I'd like to say, have a couple of comments. One, if you've ever been in the library with my grandson, Teddy, you would understand why there's a need to have a separate space for children. He doesn't have an inside voice. He only has an outside voice. So I think that's one of the important things that's going to happen in the library. The other thing is, anybody who thinks that books are obsolete should have seen my grandchildren at Christmas time. The gifts that they thought were the most important, the most exciting, were the books that they got. And I see that in a lot of children. On the other hand, the library has improved over the years, their technology, and it's used all the time with the computers and the genealogy and the research that can be done with the technology. My last point is, if you haven't taken a tour of the library, and I'm not talking about the stacks, I'm talking about the basement. You go in and ask Cindy to give you a tour. You should see what goes on in the basement, or where the staff has to do their work. And you'll be a believer that we really need the new library. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, anyone else? Hi.
Jane Newcomb. I'm currently serving as an alternate trustee on the Board of Trustees for the Wolfeboro Public Library. When I was a child, in the 1930s, I would walk to the library in our small town in Pennsylvania. There I would find a treasure of books, but that was all that typical libraries had to offer in those days, and for several decades thereafter. Fast forward to our present Wolfeboro Public Library, where I still go with my bucket list of books in hand, but where I have also enjoyed a travel series while eating my lunch, my sandwich, and enjoying a cup of coffee and talking to new and old friends. I've been a part of book discussions on novels, biographies, and also mysteries. And loved especially the series on the operas, and had a librarian help me with an infernal iPhone. I support the renovation and expansion of our library because of these opportunities and more will be available to our community without a roof which is leaking and a heating AC system which is totally inadequate and falling apart. And one of the most important features of this expansion is a space for our children, a defined space for our children, where they are going to learn to appreciate the value and love of books and increase their thirst for knowledge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Reeve Curry, and I'm a citizen in Wolfeboro and a frequent library patron. I'm there almost as much as some of the librarians. One of the things I'd like to say is that nearly most of the people who are speaking are, like me, white-haired. But in the library, I don't want you to get the impression that it's only the elderly people, like me, who are interested in books. Still, the place is littered with children. And by children, I don't just mean the little ones who are cavorting and thrilled with their books, but also teenagers. They're there all the time. This library, with so few resources, has managed to keep up with the technological progress. It boggles me how they're able to do that. And a decade or 15 years ago, whenever, when I wanted to learn how to use the internet and email, all I did was go to the library, raise my hand and say, how do I do this? And I'm completely tech savvy now, but it's entirely because of them, and it didn't cost me a penny. The last thing I'd like to say is I'd be surprised if any of you are not in favor of this, because we all know there's a point when you have a car where you're spending more on the renovation than the car is worth. And we have an amazingly well put together project. So I do second the hope that this is a unanimous choice to strongly support this. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Roger Murray, and I'm the proud grandfather of a 5-year-old and 2-year-old user of the library. They regularly attend programs. The library is a real community asset. It serves all ages of the community, but the building is a disaster. It's been pointed out, the heating system's on life support. I think the roof leaks are up to 7. The clear story is rotting, and Cindy got shocked trying to change a light bulb, and clearly something needs to be done. The cost, though, to simply fix the current problems with the library would be upwards of $2.5 million, and that would not produce a library that could meet even current needs, not to meet future needs. I think it would be pound foolish. Oh, I got that back. Penny-wise and pound foolish not to go forward with this, and I hope the committee will recommend it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay, we're going to vote on it. Can I get a motion to recommend?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move that we approve Article Number 9 for the sum of $5 million, that the Wolfeboro Public Library be expanded and renovated. I want to encourage my fellow board members to make it a unanimous vote. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Mulholland seconds. Okay, any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Done. And whoever feels most appropriate to answer, my question is, remembering back to all the issues that came up when we were renovating this building or deciding what to do with the town hall, there were a lot of other alternative programs that were thrown out and tossed about, or alternative locations for the town hall. And I'm just curious to find out during the planning process for this library renovation and expansion, you know, if the board had looked forward to, you know, years ahead, is that location the best location for the library? I'm thinking, I know that not too far down the road, we're going to be looking at a public safety building project. And, you know, and I'm just, it's a question that I'm throwing out there, and I suspect that, you know, other people might have it in the back of their head too, is would that public safety building project be best served if that was you know, acquired the property that the library building is on now and made a campus, or, you know, just what things were considered when the plan was put in place to renovate and, of course, expand the library as much as it's going to be expanded.
I'm Cindy Scott, the library director, and we began looking into what to do with the library in 2004 with various studies of the existing structure and what we could do with it. And in 2008, the property next door, Ida Glidden's property, was acquired by the town using trustee monies. Anything that's been done to date has been done with private funds. We haven't used town money for anything yet. So we have also done feasibility studies, studies on the structure, studies on whether we have hazardous materials. We worked on the initial feasibility work in 2010. And at that time, we looked at what was possible with everything, including taking the building down and starting over. We also, at that time, if you remember, Bun McBride's house was still there, so we couldn't move to the front of the lot, which also directed us in certain directions that limited what we were able to do. And we were initially looking at, based on a study that we had done in 2004 with a consultant, looking at a larger facility. We were originally looking at a 22,000 square foot library, and we cut that back to it's a little bit under 16,000, I believe, at this point. So we looked at probably about 30 different options for what we could do, and we also considered the possibility of a completely new building, perhaps having our building be used by another department, as you were talking about. And in the end, we felt that there wasn't quite enough land to do a whole nother building. We'd have had to do a 2-story building, which would have required additional staff. One of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we didn't need additional staff unless usage of the building required additional staff. We didn't want to design a building where we already had to build in having additional staff. So at that time, we decided renovating the existing building and adding an addition was the best direction to take to utilize the assets we had and create something that would be flexible well into the future. We were creating a structure that will be very flexible. Libraries change. They always have changed. They just change faster now than they used to. So we worked on a feasibility study in 2010. We took 4 years where we thought about what was going on. And then in 2014, we worked some more on the feasibility study. Then we waited while some other projects happened. And then we did a definitive, okay, we got to decide everything now in 2016, and we worked as well with some other departments like the planning department and Dave Ford were involved, so that we would really be addressing everything, including the water site issues with the water on our property. So I would like to say that we pretty much considered everything and tried to build in the ability to have an adaptable building, but also do something that really utilized what we had in the most cost-effective manner possible. And I probably just told you more than you wanted to know. I can talk about the building for hours, what can I say?
You know, my concern is that, you know, a lot of the same questions might be raised in the mind of some voters.
Right.
About that process, just like they were here, just like we're seeing what's happened up in Tuftonboro.
Right.
I mean, there was some very critical issues
Right.
that they were dealing with. So I just hope that
I think that
prepared to.
I think we have covered just about everything. We also talked to the police and fire departments about what we wanted to do, and they are going to be using the same firm for their feasibility study as we are using for this project. We carefully selected a construction manager who works in hospitals so that there would be as little impact as possible during the construction on the library and the people in the library. So it's been a very thoughtful process. We wanted to do a very, very thoughtful process from day one, and that's what we've done, and that's one reason why it's taken since 2004 when we really initially started with our first study.
John Sandine, one other point that I wanted to make in response to your question, Brian, and that is that one of the considerations when I was trustee several years ago was to look and see if there were other properties in town where the library could feasibly move, and we could find a unique piece of property that would satisfy the needs of the town, both building-wise and location-wise. And we basically came to the conclusion that there were not good alternate building sites, so that we made that choice and said the present location is really the best location for the library, not moving it somewhere out on 109 or something like that, which were possible options given to us.
One of the considerations is being within walking distance of some of the schools and nursery schools, because we do have people who come after school, and we also have people who come from nursery schools for visits with the children's librarian.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, so the motion is to recommend the warrant article, which is warrant article number 9, entitled Library Renovation and Expansion Project. I'll do it by a vote. Bob Tuffer,
Yes.
Steve Johnson,
Yes.
Hal Parker,
Yes.
John Burt,
Yes.
Bob O'Brien, Bob Lohman,
Yes.
Bob Mulholland,
Yes.
Brian Black,
Yes.
and I vote yes also. So I show 9 to 0. Okay, the next one is construction of Westwood Drive subject to betterment assessments. To see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate sum of $263,000 for the layout, design, and construction of Westwood Drive over the existing private ways right-of-way as a town road confronting the current construction standards and requirements. Pursuant to RSA 231, laying out highways, section 28-3833. This project will be subject to betterment assessments so that all costs of the layout, design, and construction, including applicable interest, surveying costs, legal fees, and other incidental costs, will be assessed against property owners abutting or served thereby. Further, authorize issuance of $263,000 of bonds or notes for this project in accordance with RSA 33 Municipal Finance Act, and authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate the rate of interest, maturity, and other terms for this purpose. This project will not result in any interest in the tax rate. Any questions on the construction of Westwood Drive? Seeing none, if I can get a motion to either recommend or not to recommend.
Move to recommend.
Okay, I got a motion to recommend, and a second?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, we will vote on the motion to recommend on Article 10, the construction of Westwood Drive, subject to betterment assessment. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Hal Parker?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. That's 9-0. Number 11, Article 11, is a stormwater collection system asset management plan. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 for the purpose of developing an asset management program for the town's stormwater collection system. That will qualify the town for federal and state funds, such sum to be raised by the issuance of bonds and notes not to exceed $30,000 under and in compliance with provisions of the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33 as amended. And authorize the Board of Selectmen to issue and negotiate such bonds and notes to determine the rate of interest thereon, and to take such actions may be necessary to effect the issuance, negotiation, sale, and delivery of such bonds or notes, as should be in the best interest of the town of Wolfeboro. Additionally, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to apply for and accept grants or other funds that may reduce the amount to be repaid by $30,000, and to participate in the State Revolving Fund, SRF, RSA 486.14, established for this purpose, and to allow the Board of Selectmen to expend such monies as become available from the federal and state government and pass any necessary vote relating to. This project will not result in an increase in the tax rate. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, can I get a motion to either recommend or not recommend?
Move to recommend.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to recommend Article 11, which is the Stormwater Collection System Asset Management Plan. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Harold Parker?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland? Yes. Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. That one passes 9-0. Okay, we'll go past Article 12, which is the operating budget, and deal with that at the end of we go through the other ones here. Okay, the next one is Article 13, Town Road Upgrades, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $870,000 for the purpose of upgrading town roads and in drainage systems.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve town road upgrades.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I think it's too high. I'm going to vote no.
Yes, I have a comment to make here. I talked with David Ford several times on this and other subjects. I asked him, when will we get to the point where we've done with the reconstruction and get into the maintenance phase? And he said, we'll never get there. And so my feeling is that, considering my age, I just as soon not ever get there at a slower rate. And I'm thinking that if we keep upping the road work $100,000 a year, it's just going to be a terrible burden on everybody. I just think that it should be sort of level funded year after year.
Yes.
Yes, John. We, in the CIP level, we were raising this by about $25,000 a year. And 2012, we were at 550, 2013, 600, 2014, 625, 2015, 650, 675. 2017, we went up to 750, and this year we originally went up to 800,000, and then late in the CIP season, another 70,000 was added for that little bit of roadway next to the old freight building behind the train station. So that's what upped it up to $870,000. Now, I received some consensus from the committee that, from several people on the committee who felt that this number was too high and would like to see, going forward, would like to see the number reduced. Right now on the CIP spreadsheet, going forward, the line item maxes out at $1 million a year, and it has become quite obvious to me that many folks in this committee feel it's too much money. So going forward, I would recommend, I figured this would be a discussion that we should have next year with the new town manager, with Dave Ford, to see if we could implement a cap on this at $750,000 for next year, or whatever number we come to consensus at. I'm going to vote for this tonight because I feel this discussion came at a little late in the game here. I wish we had this discussion earlier, but I understand what everybody's saying, and I always like to go with a consensus opinion on things. So I think, I also think that if the vote does not go well this evening, that we do have the option of making a motion to amend this line item at the deliberative session for the purpose of meeting after the deliberative session and taking another vote on our recommendations. So that's another option we have. So I just wanted to lay it out there for everybody before we vote.
Bob?
Yeah, I agree with Bob's sentiments. I'd like to see it stabilized. We operate the budget every year, so it's the same thing, so it keeps the tax rate level. And I think the best way to do that is to keep it stable. If we keep going up and going up, it's going to keep going up. The other thing I want to comment on is a lot of projects out there that are not done. And I'd like to see there's a lot of projects out there that are not done in highways and streets. I'd like to see some of those done before we take on too many more. And I know your staff is doing a good job, David, but I'd just like to see, there's a couple sidewalk projects that are still hanging out there, so that's it, that's all I got.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
As Mr. Tuffer said, the underlying number, the base number for this year was going to be $800,000. The additional $70,000 is a one-time bump up to accommodate one specific additional project, which is paving the unpaved section of Railroad Avenue. And then the base number in the logical course of events would go back down to whatever it's going to be next year, 825 or 850, whatever. It has been increasing year by year because the cost of paving roads tends to increase each year, so we're trying to keep up with, the inflationary factors.
John?
Yes, you say you had a $70,000 bump up because of work done around the train station, is that correct? Well, you could reduce $70,000 on maybe a trotting track road or one of the others to keep it at $800,000, but instead we've gone from 750 to 870, which is quite a bump up, and I suspect a little bit more in percentage increase than the cost of the pavement. I dislike intensely general statements. If you or David had statistics that says the cost of 100 feet or 100 tons of pavement is up 25% this year, I could maybe accept that. But a general statement, we've had too many of them. Excuse me, I'm editorializing.
That's okay, John. That's okay. I'm going to vote against this, to recommend this, because I think it's way too high. I think 750 to 800,000 is sufficient. And we can't just keep kicking things up on the taxpayers. And I'm like Bob also. I like to see something get done and then move on to the next project. Get this one done, move on to the next project. And I don't like to have a lot of things that are not done that are still open with our tax money sitting in the town conifers and not in our pockets. So, okay.
I'd like to ask if Dave would like to weigh in on this one way or the other. Yes.
No, you just vote on it.
Dave Ford, Public Works Director. Two things I'll say. One is that I've been tracking the votes since I've been back here 11 years, and roads always get the highest vote. So you might want to talk to your constituents and make sure they also agree with you. There might be other things you can cut in the budget that may not be as important, but I'm the one that hears about how come my road's so bad. All the roads we selected are in really rough shape. And the second thing is, well, part of the reasons we're going up because we are trying to rebuild the roads so the roads will last. Lately, we've done, I think, a better job of doing that, and I believe all our road projects are complete, except for the ones that may be tied up with the state and those issues. And you're right, the sidewalk project has been delayed. But all the road projects, each year we do spend that money, and I think we do a good job of that. But again, I thank you. Whatever your board does, we'll work with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just David, quick question, if you could. You know, addressing that comment that you were asked, you know, when do we get to the road maintenance as opposed to the road rebuilding? What is the lifespan of a typical road after it's been rebuilt?
Normally, again, pavement overlays on a road that's not well done, you know, 7 years. Roads that are redone the way we're doing them, Park Hill Road, Forest Road, those roads should go well beyond 10 years, if not 15 years, and at that point only need an overlay, not a rebuild. Most of the projects we've done, Oakwood Road we did this past year, required a lot of, all the drainage has to get replaced. It hasn't been touched in over 30 years. All the drainage has to get replaced. In some areas don't have adequate gravel. We're adding gravel. So while, you know, John makes a good point about we don't have a lot of statistics, and that's probably my fault, I don't have all the stats, but the reality is pavement costs may not have go up, but we are doing more than we used to do, 12 years ago when we, you know, had 400,000. So the budget has increased greatly, but the need is there. We're still behind. This year we're going through a whole inventory, part of the asset management plan. Next year we hope to have a long-term plan, because I've been telling you it's been crisis management. We go year to year, and I'm the one that's been pushing to increase this each year by a certain sum. I asked for $1 million, and the budget committee, the CIP gives me a little bit each year. This year there were 2 articles that were combined. The railroad extension was combined with this one, and that's why the increase was a little bit more this year.
Thank you.
You know, in theory, if you're level funded every year, then, I mean, you're going to be doing less roads every year.
Yeah, we have to do 2 things. Either we won't do as good as the job, so we can do more miles, and in the days with politicians, the mayor would say, okay, we're going to get vote this year, so put a skinny mix down in Rochester. He'll put a ½ inch over everyone's road, so I get the votes, and then the roads will fall apart in 3 years. We don't have politics here like that. I think the selectmen and even everyone here wants to do things right. We don't want to waste our money. So we have been trying to rebuild roads, and we are also installing a lot more drainage. We're trying to be more environmentally conscious with our stormwater treatment, with our catch basins and different BMPs we're doing. So it's you know, we're doing a better job, and that's partly because it costs more money. We also are using our crews, and we are trying to balance our crews between construction, preventative maintenance, and crisis, you know, emergency maintenance. And we are trying to balance that so that we don't take on too many projects. This past year we did bid out the Port Wetland and Winter Haven project. If everyone's been out there, I think that was well done, but that costs a little bit more when we have to use outside services. So we're trying to balance all the different projects, and again, but they are costing more per mile, so, and that's something I can work on, but it's not as simple as pushing a button. I have to crunch all the numbers to say, what is the cost per mile now versus what the cost per mile was 10 years ago, but we're doing a much better job. It's not comparing apples to apples.
Yeah, and that's addressing John's comment, as far as general numbers go, you know, is it possible that, you know, you can make a determination from year to year as a cost per mile or cost per foot or...
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
whatever.
I mean, I can crunch all the numbers. I can, you know, it just takes time. Yeah. And the intent is next year to come with a longer range plan. So if we want to say, do a level funding of $750 for the next 10 years, I can tell you which roads will get done, and then I can tell you which roads won't get done, and we can see that. So I think those are good questions. It's something that I've been trying to get to, and I think this year we spent some money. Of this money was on engineering, and the proposal of some of this money for 2018 is to complete that, what we call the asset management plan, which will be a complete inventory, and it'll develop a strategy for each of the roads, and then a schedule based on how much money we think we can afford.
Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
One quick comment, not encouraging that the roads not be rehabilitated up to proper standards.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none. The motion is to recommend town road upgrades. That's Article 13. Mr. Tuffer?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
No.
Mr. Parker?
Yes.
Mr. Burt?
No.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Lohman?
No.
Mr. Mulholland?
Yes.
Mr. Black?
Yes.
I vote no. Motion fails. Is that what you have, Leanne? 5 to 4?
I thought there were more ayes than nays.
4 yeses, 5 noes.
Okay, the motion to recommend fails.
One.
Is there a motion to not recommend?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
so with a vote of 5 noes and 4 yeses, it still gets to be on the, still is on the warrant articles, right? Yeah.
Does it automatically become not to recommend, David, without a vote?
Carol voted yes. Actually, so hold on. 5 yeses, 4 noes. I apologize.
I have it as 5 noes.
John McDonald, no. Brian Black, yes. John Burt, no. Bob Tuffer, yes. Bob Mulholland, yes. Steve Johnson, no. Harold Parker, yes. Bob O'Brien, yes. And Robert Bowman, no.
Does that make sense with everybody? Okay, very good. I apologize. So it is to recommended.
So 5 yeses, 4 noes.
5 yeses and 4 noes. Okay. All right, let's move on to Article 14, which is the reconstruction of the 390 line. To see if the town to vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,210,000 from the Electric Enterprise Fund for the purpose of reconstruction of the 390 line, which feeds the town electric power supply from Tufton-Borough to Wolfeboro. Such expenditures will not result in an increase in the tax rate or the electric rate. Any comments?
Say no increases.
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, no increase, says no increase.
Moving a second.
Okay, so we've got a motion to recommend and a second. Any discussion?
Just one thing. The line is over 50 years old, and it's our only source of electricity. Should be done, I think.
Okay, this is Article 14, the reconstruction of the 390 line. Mr. Tuffer?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Parker? Yes. Mr. Burt?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Lohman?
Yes.
Mr. Mulholland?
Yes.
Mr. Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Okay, repair dockside docks. This is Article 15. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 for the purpose of making immediate repairs to existing town docks and engineering permitting required repairs to the existing dock system and retaining walls as per the docks asset management study performed by Ty and Bond Engineers.
We approve.
To recommend, okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
This is the repairs.
This is the repairs.
I understand.
Okay.
But the repairs are very important, so I just want to speak to that, I'm Kathy Eaton, first of all, with the chairman of the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee. And at our meeting in December 19th, we voted, at that time, this was part of the same article as the proposed design and engineering for the expansion of the docks, so that the EDC actually voted on this along with the other to ask you folks to please recommend this as part of the other article. So I'll actually speak to the expansion, but I would like to just share with you the reasoning that the Economic Development Committee had.
Okay, Kathy, we're on Article 15. This just deals with the $90,000 for the immediate repairs. Let's not try to mix the two in together. This is just for the repairs.
Okay.
This has nothing to do with the expansion.
All right. All right, you'd prefer that I speak about them both? Okay.
Yeah, separate,
okay,
just
I
so we
will,
don't get all
okay.
confused.
All right, thank you.
David, it's my understanding these are required emergency repairs in order to open the docks this year. Is that true?
I would defer to Mr. Ford to address this. There is a letter from the Economic Development Committee, which I'll pass along to the members.
The immediate repairs are for $40,000, and then the engineering and permitting for all the other identified deficiencies was $50,000, for the total of $90,000. So
Is that 50,000 just to do the docks that are down there right now, to repair those docks that are there now? And get the permits for those docks that are there now?
correct. So the engineering and permitting would be for the existing commercial, residential, and the bulkhead that surrounds the whole area.
Okay.
The one other thing I'll also state, and this is applicable to the other article, but there are grants available, and while it's not going to be easy, I do believe the more we have identified the problems and the needs and the cost, will make us in a better opportunity to apply for and potentially get grants. So there are a couple of areas we've been looking into, but I think we need to identify more specifically those costs and the specific repairs that we'll be looking at, and that's what the $50,000 will also not only do the engineering and permitting, but also make the applications for grants that are out there.
For the repairs of the docks?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Anything else? John?
All of this is to repair emergency, critical repairs and study for ongoing repairs?
No, I'll do it again. So 40,000 is for the immediate repairs, right? The cross bracing and other things that were identified as deficiencies so that we wouldn't have to post the docks either closed or with, saying only so many people could go out there. So those are the immediate repairs. That's 40,000. Then the 50,000 is to then engineer all the other deficiencies that were identified. Some of the deficiencies don't need to get done right away.
Okay, I got you.
And then, but we need to get them all permitted, and then obviously, if, depending on the other projects, we would like to coordinate all the work there with the docks, the commercial dock, Mount Washington, and everything else in the area. So that's one of the reasons we want to do that engineering, and so we don't have to necessarily do that. What's necessary is the 40,000 for the immediate repairs, and then the 50,000 would be for the engineering and permitting for all the things that have been identified as deficient.
Of the existing?
Only of the existing.
Okay, thank you.
So the other engineering is put into the separate article.
Thank you.
I thought at our last meeting that it was going to be 90,000 for the repair and engineering, and the 25,000 was going to be the expansion. And we were talking about splitting it up and doing a 90,000
We did.
thing. Is that,
You have a warrant article for $90,000 for the current docks and $25,000 for the docks expansion.
and then this is the... Oh, it's, okay. Gotcha, okay. I missed that one. Okay, good, thanks.
Good.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, sir.
We do have a What you might lose sight of is that this dock system also includes from the bridge all the way out to the Mount Washington dock. You know that concrete walkway?
Yeah.
If you go down that walkway, you'll see where that fence that we put in a few years ago, there's some cracks opening up. And David said that in the study that we had done, that's all cribbing under there. That also has to be looked at.
Okay.
It's not just the docks that go out into the lake. It includes that whole section from the Mount Washington dock all the way back up to the bridge.
Okay,
so it
great.
isn't just understand it's not just the docks that go out.
Yeah, it's underneath the other...
It's all the way up to the river, all the way up to the...
Is that going to include like new fencing? You know, the...
The fencing will be fine, but
Okay.
it's all wood cribs under it.
Oh, okay.
If you look at the study that was done, you'll see a lot of those logs have cracked. You know, the the lattice work is, is looking pretty bad, so it includes that as well.
Okay.
So just don't think it's the docks.
Okay, thank you, David. Any other questions?
Make a motion for approval?
We've got that.
We got it
We
already.
got that already, yeah. Okay, Mr. Tuffer,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Burt,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Lohman,
Yes.
Mr. Mulholland,
Yes.
Mr. Black,
Yes.
and I vote yes also. Okay. Okay, Article 16 was Dockside Docks expansion to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $25,000 for the purposes of designing and permitting the expansion of the Dockside Docks. I got a couple of letters I'd like to read. First one is from the Chamber of Commerce, and it's addressed to me. The Board of Directors of the Wolfeboro Chamber of Commerce is strongly in favor of expansion of the Dockside Docks. We respectfully ask members of the Wolfeboro Budget Committee to recommend the proposed warrant article, Dockside Docks expansion. At its public meeting on this subject held in August, Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen heard from many members of the community who spoke highly in favor of the proposed expansion of the Dockside Docks. These included people representing local businesses, multiple residents not connected to business. The Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee spoke to support 100%. Chief Rondo also commented, stating we want to have the infrastructure in place to capture business. Expansion of the Dockside Docks improve how Wolfeboro welcomes boating enthusiasts, accommodate the growing demand by more visitors choosing to ride by boat. We mitigate boaters left circling in hopes of an open space, where the intention is to dock and then enjoy shopping and dining. If dock space is not readily available in Wolfeboro, purchases for goods, service, and meals will be made in other towns. Expansion will complement marketing efforts to the collective community, including the town itself, that are put into place for the health of our local economy. Expansion of the Dockside Dock is keeping with the town's intention to properly maintain its asset. It makes good sense long-term to plan now for the expansion of the docks. Thank you for considering favorably the warrant article for the Dockside Docks expansion. Kind regards, Mary DeVries, Executive Director, on behalf of the Board of Directors of the Wolfeboro Chamber of Commerce. And the second note I read is from Kathy Eaton, Chairman of the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee. Dear John, the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee voted unanimously at the meeting on December 19, 2017 to support the 2018 warrant article pertaining to repairs and expansion of the Dockside Town Docks. While presented to the voters by the Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen, these articles are the accumulation of a collaborative effort between the town and community representatives, including the Wolfeboro Chamber of Commerce, another example of our town's successful private-public partnership. The Wolfeboro Town Docks and Wolfeboro Bay on the Dockside are the heart of our town, especially during peak tourist season. Upkeep and repairs here are among the town's government's most basic responsibilities to maintain our existing infrastructure. The EDC also supports expanding the docks because it's an opportunity to enhance economic growth in our town while still preserving the character of our community, part of the EDC mission statement. Wolfeboro's primary industry is tourism. We need look no further when there's the people of work who work to know this is true. According to the 2017 Wolfeboro Economic Profile compiled by Headwaters Economic, 1/3, 603 of Wolfeboro residents who work in Carroll County are employed by businesses directly impacted by tourism, such as retail stores, hotels, motels, restaurants, and attractions like museums. Another 28%, 582, work in construction, real estate, insurance, or finance, business directly impacted by the economic vitality of our second home tourist industry and by the overall economic stability of our town. The remaining half work primarily in education, health, services, including everything from lawn care to schools, a hospital, nursing home, and town government. Lack of sufficient parking was the #1 issue identified as having a negative impact on business in Wolfeboro by Wolfeboro business owners interviewed in the EDC's 2015 Business Retention Expansion Survey. Several commented the expansion of the town docks would encourage people to come by boat rather than car, as well as provide docking for those already being churned away because of lack of space. In July and August, at the peak of our tourist season, boats circle off the town docks waiting for a place to tie up. Those people are coming to Wolfeboro for a reason, to shop, dine, or take an attraction. Whether they buy ice cream cone or waterfront home, they're contributing to our economy and the livelihoods of those who live here. Among those seeking a place to dock are Wolfeboro taxpayers who own waterfront properties either on the mainland or on the islands. Many are seasonal residents who contribute mightily to support schools and other year-round services they do not use. providing adequate public dockings as service area use. The EDC respectfully requests that the Budget Committee vote to recommend passage of warrant article 2018 warrant articles proposing repair of the present Wolfeboro Town Dock and design permitting for the expansion of the Dockside Town Docks. Sincerely, Kathy Eaton, Wolfeboro Economic Development Chairman. Okay. Any other comments from the public?
Yes, Kathy Eaton, and speaking as a business owner in town here, my husband and I own the Wolfeboro Trolley Company, which we've had in town here for 30 years now. And in that capacity have spent plenty of time sitting down at the town docks, watching what goes on, and also during the years that we owned the Millie B, which is now owned by the New Hampshire Boat Museum. I both ran the boat and also sold tickets there, so I had occasion to watch the activity at the town docks for many years. And it has been increasing in the past 15 years, I'd say, the number of people coming in, and also extending the season starting earlier in the spring and continuing well into the fall, the number of boats that come into the Wolfeboro Town docks. There is certainly a need for more docks that will help our economy, help our townspeople, and everyone that's associated with the tourism industry in town. I think it's very important to realize that the $25,000 that is asked here is for the design, that we shouldn't not recommend this in thinking that this then keeps us from doing the expansion. We don't know how much that's going to cost. So to not spend this $25,000 this year to at least find out what's going to be involved in doing that expansion and how much that's going to cost doesn't seem to make good sense. So we're only asking this year to spend $25,000 to get all of our information in place, and then that decision would be made down the road a little bit. So it does seem like, considering the importance of this issue, to not recommend this to the town to explore and get your facts in line would, I think, be a mistake. So I strongly encourage that. You have to realize that in addition to the activities that we observe down there on a regular basis, the town docks are also used for many special events, especially by the New Hampshire Boat Museum. So I'd urge you to please, unanimously, if you possibly can, please recommend this article to the voters this year. Thank you.
I've just got a question for you, Kathy.
Sure.
I know you've been around and you talk to people about where you see that whole area being in 5 years. I see it as probably going to cost about $1 million down there. If everything gets done that everyone wants, it's going to be about $1 million.
Well, we don't know that, John, and
No, I mean, you have a lot of
25,
input
but
from a lot of folks.
do you know what? It might be that it might cost $1 million to have everything we want down there. But without that, without our waterfront, our whole business community, and all the reasons that most of us want to live here, it is that lake, it is our front door, it is our front lawn, and it is critical to our town's economy and to our quality of life here in Wolfeboro. So that I don't know what it's going to cost, and we'll have to look at that, and I don't believe in doing things that we can't afford. That's very, very important. I'm a person that believes in a balanced budget and those aspects. But I also know that it's very important to support our townspeople in all aspects, and that means to support the businesses that employ the people here and that attract people to this community. And I think that we do have to look down the road at supporting the very most intrinsic parts of our Wolfeboro, and that area is very, very important to us in all ways. We certainly have to start with shoring up the cribs underneath there to make sure that that's there. So, you know, that's what you just said you're going to recommend here. But let's explore what the other options are, too. Let's not close that door without even taking a look there.
Right,
That's
but
what I have
I
to
guess
say.
I've lived here 57 years, which, judging by my youthful appearance, that's a pretty good chunk of my life. And I've yet to see a day in the summertime that there's not boats waiting out there. When I was 5 years old, there was always boats waiting out there. And you can add as many docks as you want, and there's still going to be boats waiting out there. And I've been down there. I spent some time down there also. And on Sundays, there's cabin cruisers that get there at 8 o'clock in the morning, take up 35 or 40 feet of dock space, and they sit there all day.
Yeah.
And nobody tells them to move, and there's no movement. And a lot of people don't know about the docks that are out in the back bay. Limited, again, there's a certain amount of length of height of boat that can get underneath the dock, but it's just, you know, I just think if we can do this expansion and find out what the cost, you can go out 25, 50, 100 feet, and there's still going to be people riding around there trying to get in
Well,
there.
you may be right, but every boat that we do get in there, John, those people are coming here to specifically spend money. They aren't taking a ride in and want to get off that boat just to walk around town. They're coming here for a reason. And we are the best place on the lake to come to by
Well,
boat.
I
And
won't
there's
argue on
tens
that.
of thousands of boats. How many boats registered, Brian, in the state of New Hampshire?
64,000 on Winnipesaukee.
64,000 boats on Lake Winnipesaukee. You're right, we're not going to get them all into the Wolfeboro Town docks. But everyone that we can will make a big difference to everybody who lives here in Wolfeboro and works here in Wolfeboro. It's important to them. And the other factor that you're mentioning too, John, is the boats are getting bigger all the time. If Brian didn't sell such big boats to the people on the lake, we wouldn't need to make the docks any bigger either. But I do think that, you know, listen, we're talking $25,000 here to open the door to just look. And we owe it to everybody who's working hard downtown and everybody in this town who wants to enjoy the lake to encourage that opportunity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Kathy.
David?
As some of you probably know, we have had a dock committee that has been meeting pretty regular. We took one afternoon with Steve Durgan, went to all the different ports around the lake and looked and measured their docks, saw what they have for spaces and so on. We have had the state out here twice, once with shoreline protection and once with clean water, Mr. Pelletier. And we came up with a plan to enlarge the docks so we could fit approximately 24 more boats, more than what we have right now. And that's extending those docks approximately 80 feet, except for the dock furthest over on the left. That one would remain the way it is. We had 2 meetings with the Mount Washington people. They are certainly in favor of what we would like to do, because the angle they come in on now they don't like, so it's going to be straightened out, so they come in perpendicular to the shore, which they would prefer because of the wind direction. So we've done extensive work already as far as coming up with ideas and ways to do this. What we want is some money to be able to go ahead and physically plan this out. We pretty much, White Mountain Survey, we hired to do some work already as far as water depths and pilings, and we have got some prices on expanding the docks, and it's not $1 million, John, it's far from it.
I'm talking about the whole area down
Well,
there.
yeah, well, the parking lot's being done, the new ramps bidding going in now. You're going to see another warrant article for restrooms, which are all needed things on that waterfront. And if you, like you say, you go down there during the summer, I do too, and sit there and watch the boats go around in circles and round and round. And yeah, you're not going to pick them all up, but we need more space, and that's the purpose.
What are the figures? Since you had some kind of figures, what did you have for figures?
I don't know if you want them. The prices we've been getting is around $300,000.
Not $1 million. Not $1 million.
No, I'm talking about that. People should be aware of what that whole area is going to cost. With the
Well,
bathrooms
John, what
and
you have to
everything.
realize, though, is some of that stuff has been mandated.
Right.
The parking lots, you know, all that stuff is ADA compliant stuff that we have been told we have to do. Same as we did with the parking lot out here. We were originally going to do that. But the feds came in and said we had to do it.
When's the boat ramp going to be done?
That'll be done for spring.
So it won't do any snowmobiling down there?
No.
Is there no snowmobile?
Not this way. No.
Okay.
No, but that whole waterfront, you're right, it's going to cost us some money, but, you know, it's needed.
Yeah, I know.
Nothing's
I just
been
want
done there
people to
for
be aware
years.
that it's going to cost, in the next 5 years or 10 years,
We're
whatever,
aware
going
of
to be a
that
rough
as
year.
well.
Well, I am too, but I want the voters that are watching this to be aware of it too. So.
Okay.
Hi, Dave Bowers again. I'm a butter to all this stuff. owning the property next door for many years, and I've seen everything that's been described. Your idea about cabin cruisers coming in and occupying 34 feet of space, I did make a proposal, and I would make this, it's not germane at the moment, but a lot of people just come and camp there, and I would think it would be a good idea to hire someone from Brewster, a high school student, to actually monitor people coming in, let them stay 4 hours, and then go out. 4 hours gives them a chance to shop, to ride Molly the trolley and everything else. Many people do camp all day, and I think that would make a great turnover of probably 30% of the boats, more boats that get in. And I'd also look at Brian Black and Steve Durgan for some advice and consent on this, because this is their business. But as Kathy has said and the Chamber said, this is our lifeblood, and I think the amount of money will be well spent.
That's a great idea. Is that something you're going to work on this year? Is that something you're going to work on this year for next year, for someone to be out there checking the time of the boats and stuff like that?
Proposal, but I think it'd be easy enough to do.
Yeah.
And it would, when someone came in, like there's probably any number of high school kids would be happy to do that in rotation, and it would solve a lot, because people do camp in with their cruisers. They come in the morning, and I see them there at night.
Right.
There's no regulation of any kind.
Oh, great, thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Actually, the police department monitors the boat parking there, and there is a 6-hour limit, I believe, under the town ordinance. Isn't that correct? 4 hour or 6 hour? 4 hour. Sorry.
Sorry, I was looking at something else. I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. Chief Rondo, Wolfeboro PD. It's 4 hour docking. So I sent you earlier an email relative to your request. I also sent it to the town manager. The bottom line, and I know what you just said in terms of, you see these boats tied up all day, so to speak. But the reality is it's 4 hour docking, which is a long time. And it's half a day, theoretically. And we're just not seeing the violations. And it's clear, and we are looking at it. I go down there all the time in the summer. The captain's down there. My officers are down there. Quite frankly, the bigger problem is the people that want to dock overnight. That's the bigger problem. A lot of those people are sent on their way without a citation. They're given a warning, hey, you can't do this, you got to get out of here. You can't dock overnight. But we're not seeing the violations relative to the 4 hours. Now, in 10 years, I did the search and we did the deep dive, John, for the last 3 days. I've had dispatch personnel going through all of our records. In fact, we even went and printed off every town ordinance violation we have written in the last 5 years and counted up, just to make sure we didn't miss any, the 4 hour docking. And you got the results, and it's basically a handful every year for the last 5 years. It's not a problem. What you have, I think, is an explosion of boats, no pun intended, on Lake Winnipesaukee. You've got a lot of people that have a lot of boats, and when they're out in the summertime, they're not docking in Wolfeboro all day. They're not doing that. They're out coming to get an ice cream cone or fuel up or buy a tube at Dive Winnipesaukee or visit Black's or something, and they're getting back in their boat with their family and they're going out and they're enjoying the busy summer days and enjoying the sunset and the swimming in the water and water skiing and everything else. So we don't have a 4 hour docking issue.
Thank you, Chief.
Was that the question, essentially?
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Did I give you more information than what you wanted?
No, you did perfect.
Excellent.
Great,
Okay.
thank you, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. As an observer, I see many violations, but that's not what I'm going to say here. Another thing that I think we could do is probably at any given time, our property is at vantage point. There are probably 20 or 30% of the spaces open, but they cannot be seen by the people circling because of yachts and things. And if we had an attendant there, the attendant could say, over here or over here.
Yeah.
And that would be very helpful.
It's a good idea, sir, thank you. Okay, anything else? Oh, hi, Mary.
Hi, Mary DeVries from the Chamber of Commerce.
And thank you for reading our letter and considering those different items that we identified in that. And, you know, historically, in the recent history, I would say the voters have voted in favor of spending money on the town's assets and including town road upgrades. Please recommend this $25,000 warrant article and let the voters have that opportunity to consider it themselves. I would like to refer to a comment that I heard earlier this evening by one of your members, and that was the value in a consensus opinion. I completely agree, and we saw a consensus opinion on this warrant article by the ad hoc committee that looked at this, and we heard from a member tonight. And also at the Board of Selectmen's public hearing, there were many members of the community, different segments of the community, all taxpayers who spoke in favor of this article. And please recommend this article so that we can show the voters what the possibility is, and it's a starting point. If there's a future article, as you referred to, John, Chairman John, the voters can then decide whether they want to continue to spend money on this. Thank you for your time, and please recommend it.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes, John? If nobody else wants to speak.
Go ahead.
I have something? Okay. I'll run through these numbers quick because John next door to me is getting tired, so.
Okay.
Regarding, I heard from Mary and Kathy that it's only $25,000, and it's, you know, it's not a lot of money. By my count here, we have projects in 2018 that add up to $390,000 at Dockside. We have two capital reserve accounts. One is being established for $100,000, another one for $50,000, $90,000 for repair and engineering on the docks, and then $150,000 for restrooms. So we have, in these warrant articles, we have $390,000 in request, cash money. This book for 2018, my mathematics tells me our debt service bill is going to be $1,652,000 and over that, so $1.65 million. In the next, between 2018 and 2022, we have two large projects. We have the library project, somewhere in the vicinity of $3.8 million, depending on how much private funding they come up with. We have the public safety building on our spreadsheet for $5 million in 2022. And in 2019, we have 4 projects that are supposed to be bonded right here on the spreadsheet, which I have right here. The dock repair on the existing docks for $400,000. The dock extension, we have listed at $250,000. Dave, I'm not sure what you just said, maybe $400,000? 300, okay. All right, so that's close. The Bay Street sidewalk, we have listed at $400,000, and that number was developed by staff, and we're not quite sure that that is quite enough. And then also we have a $400,000 bond request for the repair of Pine Street and Crescent Lake Avenue. So between now and 2022, we have bonding requests for about $10.5 million on top of $1,652,000 that's already in this book. Now, some of this is going to drop off, but I don't think it's going to all drop off before all these projects come to be. So my feeling is, and I can argue the economic point, but I'm not going to go there. My feeling is when we have projects that I consider desirable, I feel we have to really take a hard look at what we're spending money on here and perhaps push them out until such time as we can afford them. So that's why I'm opposed to this project. So that's it. Thank you.
Brian.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah. Just a number of things here. We just talked about the library expansion, and when they did their feasibility study, there was a planning aspect to that. okay, before they came up with a proposed project price tag. That money came from the trustees, I believe. Okay. To not recognize the value of our dockside area in general, I think is ill conceived. I don't want to say foolish, but to not invest a little bit of money to plan ahead. And this might not necessarily be expanding the docks, but it might be just a reconfiguration to allow more boats to get in easily. That's the biggest issue that I hear about, is that because the docks are so close together, it's tight for a boat to maneuver inside between those fingers there. The dockside area, I mean, as far as the economic benefit should be obvious to all of us. Even just, we have the town owns a restaurant there in dockside that generates $40,000 worth of income every year in rent. The rooms and meals taxes that the town collects from all the foods, all the restaurant meals that are sold in town is significant. The boat registrations, people that register boats in town are all users of the lake. As I said before, there's numbers up to 64,000 boats on the lake. People that are based at the other end of the lake, they want to drive their boats to Wolfeboro to shop and eat. People down on this end, they tend to want to drive their boats up to the other end of the lake because it's part of their recreation. If Wolfeboro is to be known as the jewel of Winnipesaukee, we need to support it and recognize the value of our lake, and that it's not just it's not an insignificant part of our infrastructure, is I guess my biggest point. And it's not always, it shouldn't be considered just a nice to have, like an expanded library. There's a lot of income that is generated to help offset our tax rate when we have a strong economy downtown. This is a $25 or $25,000 seed, so to speak, or first step to explore what the possibilities are. Yeah, it's just to lay it out, whether it's something that's decided to be put up for a vote, next year or 10 years from now. At least it gives us an idea of what we could be looking at, just to keep Wolfeboro a healthy community. That's all.
Thank you, Brian. John?
I have just a question. Maybe David can answer this. David Cynical. You say you have some plans or ideas on the layout for the expansion? Okay. What has been done with the state to find out whether or not they'd even consider expanding the area?
We've had 2 meetings with the state. One up here with Lisa DeForest, who's in charge of shoreline protection, and Rennie Pelletier, who's in charge of the Bureau, Environmental Services. They're both in favor of it. They said all we had to do was put on our application that it was in the best interest of the public, and they would approve it. So we pretty much, they've told us, with Jim Rines as our engineer, to do that. So we're pretty sure we'll get approvals for it from the state, at the state level.
Now, those two individuals you mentioned, they are the final authority, is an approval authority, or is there
Yes.
somebody above that has to?
No, that's the authority, those 2 people.
And both of them semi-agree that you can expand the...
We can expand the docks approximately 80 feet on each dock, except for the last one.
Okay.
And to answer your question, Brian, we did look at reconfiguration. That was part of what we were doing. And we lose so many dock spaces doing that, and we'd have to rip up what we have and start off all brand new.
So you're going to have the same problem with a
Well,
big boat sitting at the end, and you can't get access.
If you go down there and watch, we can't stop stupid the way some of these people drive a boat. So, I mean,
So we're
sorry,
gonna-
but
so we're
there's
gonna
plenty of room.
We're going to compound stupid by adding another
Well-
80 feet, and they're going you still can't get in.
I mean, I can't tell you, you sit down there and watch them. John, if you've seen them, some of these people go in and out, some of these people don't know how to drive a boat, sorry.
No
but
kidding. No
They stay out in the ends.
You just
you
go
know.
at the end and point it at the dock and bang it.
Yeah. And you watch the guys, they'll come in there and they'll dock their boat, and they'll put the fenders out on the outside of their boats rather than the inside to stop that kind of problem, which is there. But there is room enough to get some of these big cobalts or any of the others in between there. We've shown it. We've done it.
And I think there's value to the comment that it would be nice to have an attendant down there to help people. that
You're
are-
absolutely right.
that
But
are
we did look at the reconfiguration, and it wasn't going to be feasible. It was going to be a lot more money to do that. But we did look
But,
at
I mean, even just making the docks a little bit more narrow.
We asked the state about that,
Yeah.
and they said no.
They recommended
They
against
they
it.
recommended that we not narrow the docks at all.
Are the new docks going to, the proposed docks, are they aluminum or are they wood?
Right now, they would. But it's a different material than pressure treated. As you know, there's all kinds of composites today. So we've looked at different composite decking as well for all the docks. So,
Just one more.
that answer your question, John?
Yes, thank you. Quick thing, this $25,000 will do exactly what? Will it be for the plans to submit to the state for their approval?
It'll get us the plan, and it'll get us through the permitting process
Permitting process,
with the state.
not the, does it
And then we'll
include the
know-
beginning and the end of that process, or just beginning?
No, through to the end, and then we'll have an approved project, and we'll know exactly what it will cost at that point.
Thank you.
Okay, we all set here? Okay, the motion is to recommend Article 16, dockside dock expansions. Bob Tuffer?
No.
Steve Johnson?
I'll say yes.
Yes. John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
No.
Bob Mulholland?
No.
I vote yes.
Did you ask me?
What's that? Oh, Brian, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just mystified.
I'm still
Brian.
thinking about it.
You're still thinking about it? Okay. Brian Black?
Yes.
Okay. What you got for Count Leanne? 5-3. Yep. Yep. 5-3 to recommend.
John?
Yes, sir.
Just as a point of request, did we formally make a motion on this?
I don't think we did.
I thought there was a made motion to recommend. Oh, boy. Okay, I apologize, everyone. Is there a motion to recommend Article 16? And a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? Okay, one more time. Motion is recommend Article 16, dockside dock expansion. Bob Tuffer?
No.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Yes. Bob Lohman?
No.
Bob Mulholland?
No.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Motion to recommend passes. What was the final count, Leanne? 5-3? 5-3. Dockside public restrooms. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $150,000 to reconstruct and expand the public restrooms at the Dockside Restaurant Facility to provide year-round American with Disabilities ADA accessible public restrooms at Dockside Facility. Any comments from the public on that article?
Quick comment. As you will see, and I could have made this comment about the docks, there is an ad hoc restroom committee, and what we did is we phased our projects. Last year we did Foss Field, this year to address restrooms at Dockside. So I hope that you will support this. It's very badly needed down there.
I think, well, you're on the whole restroom thing, Linda. I think some of us are disappointed that the kids won't be able to use, we still have to have the porta potties down on the soccer field rather than letting the kids go up to the new restrooms to use those.
There's just too long of a distance
Yeah.
for the kids to go. I mean, I have a 5-year-old grandson. There's no way I'm going to let him down there.
Right.
So that makes sense. So there will be at least porta potties at the field.
Do you folks take into consideration or two, like what, when you talk about this in your committee about the future cost that it's going to keep these restrooms up and the extra cleaning and all that other stuff, do you guys discuss that at all, or?
Well, it's a need.
Okay.
I mean, you know,
So it doesn't come into
you
your
look at
thought.
a need and, you know, that's what you need, and with that need, you have to pay for the cost to have it, you know, and that is part of the project. And obviously, we got the support of the taxpayers, and I'm sure they realize that you have to clean a bathroom.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any motions on this one? Motion recommend, anybody?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is recommend Article 17, which is the Dockside Public Restrooms. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. 9-0 to recommend.
8-0.
8-0.
8-0, I'm sorry. Okay, Affluent Disposal Study, Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $500,000 for the purpose of designing and permitting the long-term affluent disposal solution and to make required site work upgrades in accordance with NHDS and the town administrator's order by consent, ACO, and also to require an approximately 5-acre parcel of land in Tuftonboro adjacent to the town's rapid infiltration basin site for the purpose of completing required improvements. Said $500,000 shall be transferred from the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Such expenditures will not result in any increase in the tax rate. Any comments from the public? Okay, any motions from the committee?
I so move.
Okay, you got a motion to recommend, and who seconds?
Second.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to recommend on Article 18, Affluent Disposal Study. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Ryan Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Article 19, Sewer Rehabilitation. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 from the Sewer Enterprise Fund for the purpose of designing and permitting upgrades to the sewer collection system, reduce infiltration. The activities were paid for from a legal settlement will not result in any increase in the tax rate. Any comments from the public? Any recommendations from the Budget Committee?
So moved.
Motion to recommend, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to recommend Article 19, Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Robert Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also, 8-0. Article 20, replace water treatment plant control panels. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $175,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund for the purpose of upgrading control panels and computers at the water treatment plant. These activities will not result in any tax increase, any tax rate, increase in the tax rate. Any comments from the public? Any motions from the committee?
Motion to recommend.
In a second? Second, okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Article 20, replace water treatment plant control panels. Bob Tuffer.
Yes.
Steve Johnson.
Yes.
John Burt.
Yes.
Bob O'Brien. Bob Lohman.
Yes.
Bob Mulholland.
Yes.
Brian Black.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Article 21, Pine Street water line replacement. To see if the town will vote to raise the appropriate sum of $260,000 from the Water Enterprise Fund for the purpose of replacing the existing water line in Pine Street. These activities will not result in any increase in the tax rate. Any comments from the public? Any recommendation from the Budget Committee?
Motion to recommend.
And I need a second. Any discussion? Seeing that, Article 21 is the Pine Tree Water Line Replacement. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman? Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Article 22, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 for the purpose of designing and permitting a sidewalk along Bay Street. And before I start, I got a letter here to read. Okay, this is from the New Hampshire Boat Museum. Dear John, it has come to our attention that several members of the Budget Committee may not be in support of the sidewalks along Bay Street. I am sure you're aware that the New Hampshire Boat Museum has purchased properties in the middle of a capital campaign to construct a new building on Bay Street. We made this decision on the basis of the town master plan was to support economic growth in the Bay Street area and even made zoning changes to encourage that growth. We have felt the support of the town selectmen and the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee that sidewalks were planned to be constructed up Bay Street. It made perfect sense that this would happen as we already have a town park, the Taylor Home, a food co-op, restaurants, and several private businesses on Bay Street. We have touted to several pledged donors of the town support in the coming of the sidewalks. We are currently on track to break ground in the spring of 2019, and it would be detrimental to our campaign if the Budget Committee did not support the engineering and planning of the sidewalks. We encourage you to reiterate to the committee members the importance of this article to the master plan growth down Bay Street. We thank you in advance for your consideration. Sincerely, Joe Takaro, Board Chairman, New Hampshire Boat Museum. Any other comments from the public?
Mr. Chairman, there's also a letter here from the Economic Development Committee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Pass it along.
I have it right here. Thank you. Okay, this is from the Economic Development Committee. Dear John, the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee voted unanimously at its meeting on December 19th to support the 2018 warrant article to appropriate the funds for design engineering of the sidewalks on Bay Street. It is our understanding that the construction of the sidewalks will be phased in the beginning of 2019. The proposal is a critical step in the long-term infrastructure planning set in motion 25 years ago by Wolfeboro citizens as part of the 1993 town planning charrette. Beginning with the first master plan in 1996, long-term planners encouraged economic development on Bay Street by zoning that area for mixed use, including commercial and residential. The early decision was made after careful considering options for future commercial growth, i.e. Bay Street versus Center Street. Our forefathers saw how strip zoning outside additional downtown cores destroyed many towns. In an effort to keep Wolfeboro a walking community and to provide for future business growth, Bay Street was designated a limited business district. When flooding damaged the bridge on Bay Street in 2006, the town anticipated the future need for sidewalks here by building the new bridge wide enough to accommodate the sidewalk. This past March, the planning board and voters again echoed the support for this plan by expanding the allowed uses in that zone. Today, there are 29 businesses located in Bay Street, including the Taylor Home, a senior residential community, which may be expanding, and Front Bay Park with ADA accessible trails, but no sidewalks connecting it to the rest of the community. Next summer, the New Hampshire Boat Museum will break ground on the new five-man museum on Bay Street. The premier attraction in Wolfeboro already brings visitors to town, and its many programs and special events also enjoyed by local citizens. The new museum will provide first-rate parking facilities for visitors, including bus tours. Connecting the museum to the downtown for your sidewalks is critical to the entire business community, as well as in keeping with long-term infrastructure planning for our town. Again, we call your attention to the importance of our tourism industry to those who live and work in Wolfeboro. Citing the 2017 Wolfeboro Economic Profile compiled by Headwaters Economics, One-third, 603 of the Wolfeboro residents who work in Cal County employed by businesses directly impacted by tourism, such as retail stores, hotels, motels, restaurants, and attractions like museum. Another 20%, 582, work in construction, real estate, insurance, or finance, business directly impacted by the economic viability of our second home tourism industry and by the overall economic stability of our town. The remaining half work primarily in education, health, and services, including everything from lawn care to schools, a hospital, nursing home, and town government. The EDC supports the Board of Selectmen in recommending the appropriation of the funds to design and engineer Bay Street sidewalks for the reasons indicated above, and because there's the opportunity to enhance economic growth in our town while still preserving the character of our community. Part of the EDC mission statement, the EDC respectfully requests the Budget Committee vote to recommend passage of this warrant article to our townspeople. Sincerely, Kathy Eaton, Chairman of the Wolfeboro Economic Development Committee. Okay, any comments from the public? Okay, any motions concerning Article 22?
I have a question.
Yes, John.
What's the statistics of the possible use of this sidewalk? My question is, roughly, what do we think is going to be used? How many people a day?
I don't know that, I can tell you that as the owner of the trolley company, and the trolley goes down Bay Street, we turn around at Wolf Trap Restaurant and have for the last probably 20 years, we take people down there. More often we bring people back who come in by boat and park at the town docks and then walk down there to go to the restaurant, to use the restaurant facility. And then it's hot and they don't really want to walk back. So we give people rides back from down that way, and we do it all the time during the summertime. The Taylor community, the community right off of Bay Street, has people who I'm sure would like to walk to town, but who do not. We do see people walking in the road frequently on the trolley when we're doing our trolley tours, which we do 7 days a week throughout July and August. So I can attest to the fact that there are people walking down there now. The food co-op is another business there, but there are the Front Bay Park all the way down at the end, which has been designed to be ADA compliant so people with wheelchairs can use the paths and things there, but they don't have a sidewalk to get there, say from both the ledges, walking from Wolfeboro Falls, and as well as coming from the Taylor home. So, and the boat museum being there will be a big attraction. I get, one other example, John, is people coming in on the Mount to go to the museums. They come in on the Mount and then they walk to the Wright Museum, and they will be able now to walk to the Boat Museum. We have so many people who come in who want to be able to walk to the Boat Museum down on Center Street, and they ask us for directions, and we explain to them we can take them by trolley, but it's not walkable right now, and a lot of people would like to.
You haven't answered my question. I don't think you can. Because I look at the sidewalks that we have in existence, for example, on both sides of South Main. Those are terrible. If we have any precipitation on them, we've got, instead of a crown on the sidewalks, there's caves. They're below the sides. Those are sidewalks that we have that are in atrocious condition. We're going to spend about $34,000, $45,000 for just design of a, what, $200,000 sidewalk?
I think the selectman can answer that question better. I had asked that question too, so I'll step aside.
And I noticed on the backup, it was not necessary or urgent, it was desirable. But, again, I go back to the fact, if you want to sell a project, you have to have some numbers. At least I would like to see some numbers. I just know that a heck of a lot more people use the sidewalks South Main, and I'm sure North Main has the same thing. And those sidewalks are unsatisfactory. Money should be spent there instead of on something that's desirable.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Don't have any concrete numbers to offer to you. Anecdotally, I can tell you our experience at the Information Center at the Chamber of Commerce is that We have seen an increase in the number of both residents and visitors, but year-round residents definitely, who come in and just want reassurance from us on where they can park and leave their car so that they can walk around all day, is the actual quote that I could offer to you. And I'd like to comment too, the master plan was mentioned earlier, and in the most recent master plan was 2007, and thank you, and I was actually looking in it for something unrelated to this topic, and then almost right away, in the first couple of pages, came across reference to wanting to build a sidewalk on Bay Street. And so then I flipped another page and there was another reference to it. So I actually have it in my office, but it's, so not here, but I had started bookmarking them, and I think there were 7 or 8 places in that 2007 master plan where the voters, so the taxpayers who created that master plan, said, yes, we want that sidewalk on Bay Street. So again, just an opportunity to let the voters think about that in the current year. Thank you.
Thank you, May. Any other comments?
Oh, no.
I think everybody would agree with Kathy that it's certainly would be nice to have it. To John's delivered point, as far as at what point do we say no and at what point do we say yes to certain projects? Studies are good. I mean, the idea is good. They're all good. But every year, between the budget and the warrant articles, we go up anywhere from 4% to 6 or 7% every single year for the past 10 years. And at some point, you ought to have some kind of due diligence to say no to this project or whatever project it is, and yes to some other project. So while I like the idea of the sidewalk, I mean, I've walked back there many, many times, and I know you have to look out for cars, you have to go heading into traffic. Is this the year to address it? I don't know.
Okay.
I can answer that question.
Can I get a motion to recommend?
I'll make the motion.
To recommend? And a second? I'll second it. Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to recommend Article 22, Bay Street Sidewalk. Bob Tuffer?
No.
Steve Johnson?
It's a tough one, but I'm going to say no.
No?
No.
Okay. John Burt?
No.
Bob O'Brien? Yes. Bob Lohman?
No.
Bob Mulholland?
No.
Brian Black?
I'm going to say yes.
And I'll say yes.
Three to 5.
Oh, 5-3, sorry.
Not to,
No,
3 to 5.
3, 4, 5 against.
okay, not to recommend.
Not to recommend, right.
Not to recommend, okay. Okay, Article 23, Dockside Docks Cap Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to establish a Dockside Docks Cap Reserve Fund for the purpose of repairing and improving the Dockside Docks facilities, and further to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be deposited in said cap reserve fund to be under the custody of the trustees of the trust fund. The selectmen are designated as agents to expand the funds in this cap reserve fund. Any comments from the public?
So is this the, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is this the, we start putting money aside for the construction of new docks? That's $300,000?
The improvements, you're funding $90,000, $50,000 of which is to design the needed repairs and whatever is needed to the existing town docks and the head walls and everything. And then you're going to need to have money to pay for those improvements. So this is like establishing a savings account to put money aside to start accumulating funds for those improvements.
That includes the whole area, the parking area as well.
It's not the parking lot. There's a separate capital reserve fund for the parking lot. That's the next article.
David, I guess I'm confused. I thought these had to be done this year. This was some big, huge emergency to have those docks done. Is this the money to do that, or was it in the other warrant?
Again, the article you already voted on, there was $40,000 for immediate improvements and $50,000 for the design and permitting of additional needed improvements beyond the immediate improvements. And as was referred to previously, those are estimated to cost
300.
Was it 300,000?
Yeah, we're getting a little confused, Dave Ford again. So the time bond report for the repair and the replacement of the docks there is $420,000. So that's in addition to the emergency repairs for $40,000, and in addition to the $50,000 to do the engineering permitting. The engineering permitting is for this amount that we right now, the rough estimate is $420,000. Does that make sense?
So this is to start setting money aside for that $420,000 anticipated cost.
For the new docks.
When we talked about originally,
Not for expanded docks.
Expansion.
Not for the expansion. This is just the needed improvements identified in the tie and bond report.
Question. You said that $450,000 is the guesstimate.
$420,000.
Well, 420. What the heck was with 30,000 around here?
It's in the report, in the tie and bond report. So it's in the asset management report for the docks.
For making the overall improvements, repairs.
The long-term improvements and repairs, correct.
Improvements, what do you mean by improvements?
So it would include the gang pilings where the mast, where the Mount Washington comes in, you know, the big gang pilings.
Yeah.
All the docks, the replacing the decking underneath where the areas are wearing out and need to get replaced. The seawalls, which extend from the bridge all the way out to the point where the mountain comes in, and it goes all the way out to Dave Bauer's property, all the way across.
Okay.
So everything you see there,
And
we
that's the
have.
cribbing that David was talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
But we don't know it specifically. That's why we need to do the engineering and permitting first, and then we'll get a better number. Right now, we have the guesstimate of $420,000.
Okay.
And that's in addition to the $40,000 for the immediate repairs, which have been identified that need to be done right away.
Okay, I'm really a little bit of concern here. This is this capital reserve is to be built, to build up an amount of money for periodic repairs to the existing facility. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I'd said periodic. These are for the repairs that have been identified. There's a deficiencies have been identified, right?
Okay.
And then we need to now engineer the repair and potentially upgrade. So maybe we change, instead of having the wood docks, we have a composite dock. Or, you know, so there might be some upgrades to the existing facility. So we're talking about the existing docks, wharfs, and pilings.
Okay.
So any expansion that David was talking about, that's in addition. So
That's a separate project.
So what we're talking about as far as the dockside capital improvement, as far as like docks and the seawalls. So to John's point, you're getting upwards of $1 million to do that area. That's what we were talking about.
Oh, I don't think there's anyone arguing that, no.
Okay, well then,
so we're talking
I
about,
misunderstood.
we're talking about the waterfront.
The whole waterfront?
That's what I think everybody's getting hung up with, because we keep thinking about the docks, the docks, the docks. Everybody's getting.
But it includes the docks.
I understand
Okay,
that,
okay.
but what we're talking about is the whole face.
The concrete, the cribbing underneath, the pilings.
if I may make a recommendation, for whatever reason it is, I can see the need for a capital reserve fund for this, but it's misnamed.
Well,
People get confused, they think it's about the docks.
That's what this is for. This
Would
is
you like
just
to
for
see
the
docks, wharfs, and pilings?
Waterfront.
It has nothing to do with a parking
Something.
lot or
There's
anything
gotta
like
be-
that.
there's
It's
gotta
all
be some
done.
term that gets, that talks about the whole waterfront.
Well, in my presentation that we'll have, that we're going to be taping next week and that we'll have at the town meeting, I'm going to, again, show and explain that it includes everything.
Okay, good. Because I really think that's...
Yeah, I think we're confused, yeah. See, sometimes I'm too close to it, so I didn't realize you were confused with it. Okay.
David, I just got a question for you. Why 100,000?
That was decided upon by the selectmen. We're not sure, obviously, we're going to be Yankee with this. If we can if some of that stuff has useful life, we're going to push those off. But we do need to be smart. We can't do a repair on top and then next year have a repair on the bottom. So that's one of the issues. We've got to coordinate the repairs, and we're not sure if we can phase them and be cost effective.
I'm fine.
The intent was maybe over 4 years, we would have, instead of having to bond this, we could put it into the savings account, and then if we could do one section, maybe we could do one dock at a time. So it gives us the flexibility, and also allows us to go after that grant money. Remember, I said that before, there is grant money available for dock expansion and repairs. So this would help us, again, sometimes it's a match, a 50-50 match. So if we have money, like we did at the wastewater capital reserve fund, we had matching money when a grant came available for the emergency generator. We picked up $80,000 there. So I think, again, the money was just picked by the selectmen, the amount.
Okay, thank you.
It still bothers me, John, that I'd be comfortable if they would say for the repairs and maintenance of the facility, and that, bother me, we have a sort of open-ended capital reserve here. And I can see that we have a pretty good-sized project, $400,000 or $500,000 project coming up. Now, if this was established for that project, I'd feel all right. If it was established for ongoing maintenance repairs over the next 5, 10, 20 years, and have, say, $100,000, $200,000 in there, in case something came up and there had to be some emergency repair, the money would be there. But just to say, well, we'll have it an open-end system, I feel uncomfortable with that.
Okay. Anything else from the public? Okay, can I get a motion to recommend or not recommend from someone?
Motion to recommend.
A second. Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, that's a motion to recommend for Article 23, Dockside Docks Capital Reserve Fund. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
No.
John Burt?
No.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
I vote yes also.
6 and 8, huh? 6 and 2.
6 to 2, Leanne? Okay. Article 24, Dockside Parking Lot Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be deposited in the existing Dockside Parking Lot Capital Reserve Fund, which is under the custody of the trustee of the trust fund. The selectmen have been designated as agents to expend the funds in this capital reserve fund. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, any motions from the committee on whether to recommend or not recommend?
I have a question, John.
Yes, John?
Exactly what is this for?
The parking lot.
And what respects of the parking lot? Is it just to...
Reconstructing the parking lot.
Well, is it to repair the parking lot? Is it to make periodic repairs? Is it to...
It's on the back.
Do some different improvements to the parking lot?
Good, David.
In 2015, the town appropriated $50,000 to do a survey some test pits, and engineering. Those plans were prepared. We had different alternatives. We had stakeholder meetings in which we looked at different drawings. I'm not sure if you remember back then. So we had feedback, and at that point, the estimate was between $300,000 and $450,000. The 450 had a lot more amenities. We're losing parking spaces, and we had some feedback, and I think the selectmen said, no, we need to make it more kind of an upgrade, but what we have there now. So we want to maximize our parking spaces. We are going, we have a lot of sinkholes because that's all on top of cribbing. So the design would include us ripping out the pavement, going down a certain distance and putting a fabric to stabilize that and building a nice fill. So right now we have a lot of sinkholes. We have uneven surfaces. We are paying a lot of money each year to patch. So the intent was to repair and rebuild it to a higher standard so it would last, and also would be for drainage and some stormwater treatment. But at this point, we have initial funding in 2016. The capital reserve was set up, so it's already there. Yeah. And we have $100,000 with interest. I'm not sure what the interest is. So this would be adding to it another $100,000 with the intent that it would be constructed following right now this year we're doing the boat ramp. Next year we're going to be doing the bathrooms. So this would be either bathrooms in 2018.
This is parking lot only.
This parking lot now would be in the future, in 19 or 20. So
Okay.
that was the intent.
So
There's already $102,585 in this capital reserve fund. So this is an addition to that, so that when we get to reconstructing the parking lot in a couple of years, we'll have most of the money on hand.
okay, this is the one where we've put in over starting back in 2015?
Correct.
No. In 15, we had 50,000. That was cash for the engineering surveying.
16.
In 16, we put 100,000.
Okay. In 17, we put 150,000. 18, we put 50,000. This year, it's a total of $350,000 we put into that.
No, I don't believe we put anything in. We didn't put anything in 2017. 2017, we funded
Okay,
the
that
boat
might
ramp.
be another part. Okay, but this is all aimed at doing this really reconstruction of the parking lot.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yes.
What's the estimated cost of that?
Again, for the basic parking lot is $300,000.
$300,000.
Now, that was in 2015 dollars, so that might escalate a little bit, and then, yep.
So Dave, on your breakdown of this, you have 250, so that's going to escalate to 300,000? In your presentation of what the parking lot will spend.
That's correct, yeah. That's, what are you looking at now?
This is on the back of your presentation.
Okay.
So if we've got 100,000 plus, then we add 50 now, you're anticipating another 50 basically to go.
Right, yeah.
Are you going to expend any money until you're going to just accrue it until it's ready to be complete, or will you be doing things as you need?
No, I think it's going to have to be, we are doing things, like this past year we did the sewer line, which was necessary, which was funded separately. We are going to be doing, when we do the dockside bathrooms, we are going to be ripping up some of the parking lot because we are going to provide a new sewer service to that and a new water service, as well as bury the overhead electric wires and get those underneath. So we'll be ripping up the parking lot there.
So as you expend for this project, the funds will come from there and that will reduce.
These funds are specifically for the parking lot and the drainage. The other funds have paid for the other utilities that we're doing.
Okay.
But that's an older number, so that's being, right now I'm looking at 300,000, because we're going to be looking at least 2 years from now, because we don't want to do it until we have all the other projects, the big projects done.
Yes, John.
Yes, sir.
I think Steve hit it right on the head. On the spreadsheet, Dave, we have this down at 2021 for the project on the parking lot, and then this year, next year, in 2020, 50,000 each year. So this capital reserve account would just pay for that parking lot repair. That would be it.
Is that the intention of this capital reserve for this major repairs? and not future ongoing repairs.
Correct, yeah, exactly. So this would not, this is for a specific project to be done in 2021, that's right, the current schedule.
Is it? For sure? Okay. How can we, what can we do? A lot of the problem, because the people come in there with their tents and drive stakes in the pavement and all of that. What are you going to do about that?
We're going to work with those, the boat museum or the
Antique cars?
antique cars and those things. So we're going to work with them, so we got to figure out how to way to protect our pavement while allowing them to still have tents. So that's going to be figured out before we get to construction.
Yeah, because that's probably 50% of the problem down there.
I don't believe so. I think the problem is that, you know, there's a cribbing underneath, and it's just, you know, again, it wasn't designed.
A little bit, yeah.
But obviously, anytime you penetrate, you're right, it is a problem.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, can I get a motion to recommend?
I'll make a motion to recommend.
Second, okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is recommend Article 24, which is Dockside Parking Lot Cap Reserve Fund. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Okay, Article 25, Fire Truck and Apparatus Replacement Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $186,000 to be added to the existing fire trucks and apparatus replacement capital reserve fund, to be under the custody of the trustees of the trust fund. The selectmen have been designated agents to expend this capital reserve fund. Any comments from the public? Any motions for the budget committee to recommend?
So moved.
In a second, okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of recommending Article 25, Fire Truck and Apparatus Replacement Capital Reserve Fund? Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman? Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Article 26, Public Works Vehicles and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $170,000 to be added to the existing Public Works Vehicle and Capital Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. To be under the custody of the trustees of the trust fund, the Board of Selectmen has been designated as agents to expend this capital reserve fund. Any comments from the public? Okay, any motions from the Budget Committee?
Motion to recommend.
And a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, the motion is recommend Article 26, Public Works Vehicles and Equipment Capital Reserve Fund. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Article 27, Abenaki Ski Area Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $16,750 to be added to the existing Abenaki Ski Capital Reserve Fund. Under the custody of the trustee of the trust fund, the Board of Selectmen has been designated as agents to expend these funds. Any comments from the public? Any motions from the Budget Committee to recommend?
I got it.
Recommend.
In a second? Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes, John.
What's the balance of this capital reserve at this time?
$55,362.
Okay. Then according to my figures, then there's about 40,000 that's already been spent on this one?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
I have the balances, what I'm looking at is the balances as of the, I don't remember the ending balance, or I have the ending balance right now in the fund. I just have the ending balance, and I don't have the beginning balance. I don't have it going way back when it was started.
Okay. Has money been spent in this, out of this?
$485 this year.
How much?
$485.
What was that for?
Something to do with rope, was it?
Justin Chafee, Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. We got a brand new rope. We switched to it's a polypropylene rope that they told us would give us a longer life. Right now, we're replacing the rope every couple of years. They said this would last hopefully 3 to 4 years. So I think the money came out of that. In general, the fund is for bigger expenses. The groomer is getting older, and I think that's kind of the primary goal we have right now, is to get enough money in there so when the time comes that we do need to replace it, we have the money in there.
So do you have a target level that you want to maintain in this account?
I think at this point, we're just trying to grow it. A new groomer, we're working with local skiers to possibly get their used groomers, but at this point, we're not even close to where we need to be to do that.
Well, thank you. I think there should be sort of a target level for this one.
Yes, sir.
I believe we provided the committee a schedule of when everything is anticipated to be, when the major expenditures are scheduled to be made out of this fund. So I think you have that information somewhere.
I recall seeing that. It spells everything out when they need to buy it.
We had so damn many people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can you give it to John so John can take a look at it, please?
That's also provided to the CIP committee.
Okay, can I get a motion to recommend from someone?
Recommend.
In a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is recommend Article 27, Abenaki Ski Area Capital Reserve Fund. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt? Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 7 to 1. Okay, Article 28 is the wastewater treatment plant capital reserve fund. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $125,000 to be added to the existing wastewater treatment plant capital reserve fund. To be under the custody of the trustee of the trust funds, the Board of Selectmen has been designated agents to expend this capital reserve fund. Any comments from the public? Any motions from the Budget Committee? Motion.
Second.
Second. Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion is to recommend Article 28, wastewater treatment plant capital reserve fund. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt? Yes. Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman? Yes. Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. 8-0. Okay, Article 29, building maintenance capital reserve fund. To see if the town would vote and raise appropriate the sum of $75,000 to be added to the existing building maintenance capital reserve fund established for the purpose of making needed repairs and performing needed maintenance to the town's building facilities. To be under the custody of the trustee of the trust funds, the Board of Selectmen have been designated as agents to expend this capital reserve fund. Any comments from the public? Okay. Any motions from the Budget Committee? Motion to amend, anybody?
Motion to recommend.
In a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any
I have
discussion?
a question.
What's that, John?
I have a question.
Okay.
How much money have we got in this account?
$16,925.40.
15,000?
$16,925.40.
We put into it, 2016 and 2017, we put into it 80,000.
Yeah, 80, yeah.
And what, so that leaves about $72,000, $73,000 that was spent?
Yeah, there was money spent down at Dockside on the repairs to the restaurant building. We also, some of the other things that went on, we had sewer leak in this building this last winter. I've got all the detail.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to recommend Article 29, Building Maintenance Capital Reserve Fund. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Bob O'Brien? Bob Lohman?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
And I vote yes. 8-0. Article 30, Libby Museum feasibility study. To see if the town will raise an appropriate sum of $75,000 of which 2/3 of the cost will be borne by private foundation and 1/3 by the town, for the purpose of conducting a feasibility study and design options to best accommodate both the Kirtland Museum collection and addition to it by improving or expanding the existing historic museum building. Further, to authorize the selectmen to accept the monies from the private foundation to be used for said purposes. The amount to be raised by general taxation shall not exceed $25,000. Any questions from the public? Any motions from the committee?
Motion to recommend.
And a second?
Second. Got a question?
Yes, John.
This is probably for David Senecal, or maybe David Ford. We've been fussing with this building on and off for the 20 years I've been on the budget committee. And it never seems to resolve the problem. Or do we find new problems all the time? David, you're smiling. Do we ever fix it?
John, you have a good memory. I'm not sure it was 20 years, but since I've been here for 11 years, first it was identified when we did we got sued by the federal government for ADA non-compliance. So under that, we had some issues to deal with ADA accessibility with the entrances and the bathrooms. Then we had a code review done of the building. So then we had to do code review. We found out we didn't have a septic system. So we spent about $100,000 a few years ago. And so recently, this is now with the new director. Part of it is to do with the Friends of Libby, very well meaning and trying to keep the building together. But some of the artifacts are now deteriorating, and the new director has brought that up, saying that we really have some serious issues with the sustainability of the museum unless we have a long-term plan. In combination to that, we have the potential a donation of some very high-quality artifacts. But however, I think part of the issue of getting those donated would be to have a building that is heated and ventilated properly. So I think this study is to look at both those issues, look at the long-term sustainability of the building, where prior to we were doing crisis management. We had a crisis with ADA accessibility, with codes, and then things were
building was
identified.
falling apart.
The building was not falling apart, but slowly, as old buildings do, like us, we tend to start needing some repairs, and we needed to get put back together. So we did some amazing things to keep that building from holding apart. But it is 100 years. It was over 175 years now, and it is in the selectmen's responsibility as the trustees. And our hope is that we can maintain it for another 100 years. So I think this is a good article looking forward again. And again, part of this, again, like an asset management, will identify hopefully the long-term needs versus just a crisis management, which we've been doing over the last 10 years.
Thank you.
All set, John? Got a motion and everything, I guess? Good. Okay, the motion is to recommend. This is Libby Museum feasibility study, Article 30. Lost my list. Give me a minute to get organized here. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
John Burt?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Bob Lohman?
Yep.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
Who did I miss? Yes, okay. Did I miss anybody else? Okay. Myself, I vote yes. Thank you. It's been a long night here. 8-0. Okay, the last one on the warrant articles that I have is warrant Article 31, which is Lakes Region Model Railroad Museum Extension of Time.
Well, that has no money attached to it.
We don't have to do anything with it, right? Even though it mentions 95,000, or do we have to do anything because it mentions
You don't have to.
95,000?
It's not a financial warrant article in that it's not requesting an appropriation.
Okay. Okay, the only thing that I have here is we were asked to reconsider the town manager's salary for 2018. Does anyone want to make any motion to adjust that and make any changes to that? Okay. And Peter, what do you have as the final figure in your numbers?
I have 27,000,000 $340,249.
Okay, 27. Okay, so we're going to go back to the Article 12, which is the 2018 operating budget. Shall the town raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant, or as amended by the vote on the first session, the purpose of set forth therein totaling $27,340,249. Should this article be defeated, the operating budget shall be $26,814,660, which is the same as last year's operating budget. With certain adjustments required by the previous action of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold up to one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, 10, and 16 to take up the issue of the revised operating budget only. Okay, can I get a motion to recommend?
Motion to recommend?
And a second? Any further discussion? John Burt?
No.
Oh, John. Bob Tuffer?
Yes.
Brian Black?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Bob Mulholland?
Yes.
I vote yes. Yes. Bob O'Brien? I got too many Bobs. Jeez.
There's a few of us.
I've got like 4 Bobs. Okay.
That's why we sit together.
Yeah. Okay, so I have, what do you have there, 7-2? 7-1? Okay. Okay, does anyone have anything else?
Yes, I could use any blank pages.
Any blank pages, John?
Yes, papers that have writing on only one side. I'm getting desperate. Trying to save money.
It's our last, I guess, official meeting with the town manager, Dave, and Peter. Well, I know, but I like to say goodbye and thank you a couple times.
Okay, well, thanks.
Okay, I appreciate all your help over the years, and you too, Peter, and I wish you guys the best of luck. If I can get a motion to adjourn,
So move.
and a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, everyone.